Hanamikoji. This is a game for 2 players only. It's a quick filler, plays in 15-20 minutes. Less if you lose in round 1, which is entirely possible, especially, that has happened to me several times. The topic is we are trying to gain the favor of a number of geishas represented by those cards. And so the topic may be a little bit unusual. I played the game with my 11 daughter Amelia and we had no problem there, but then mom walked in and she heard us talking and she was like, what are you talking about? Geishas? Is that appropriate? Sure. Because you're just, trying to hire again to receive the favor of these skilled entertainers that all are good apparently at doing different things, such as playing the Japanese banjo. I know that's not probably the name. Tea ceremony and things like that. The art is very nice. Is very pretty. And that geisha there, she looks incredibly familiar to me. I believe I delivered a love letter to her in another game, but in any case, the production values are very, very good. Each geisha, and we have a row of geishas that we place there in between the 2 players in the middle of the table. Each geisha has a numerical value that represents the number of victory points that she's worth, and also the number of cards of her type that are to be found in this deck. So, for example, this geisha here has a 2 there. Then there are 2 cards indicating the item that she can be identified from, such as the fan there, for example, the flute, the scroll, 2 for the scroll, 4 tea sets indicating that geisha, and so on and so forth. We shuffle these cards, we give 6 to each player. We take 1 and we take it out of the round, so the players cannot count cards perfectly because they do not know which card will not be used. Each player has 4 action tokens, and then you're good to go. Well, you place the geishas. Also, each geisha receives a favor token, which is placed on her card. The purpose of the game is to gain the favor of the geishas. If you gain the favor of geisha, the favor token moves to your side. The game is played in rounds. At the end of each round, you check. If a player has the favor of 4 geishas, that player wins the game. But also, if a player has the favor of enough geishas to total 11 points, 5 and 4 and 2, then the player also wins the game. It's possible that a player has 4 geishas and the other player has 11 points worth of geishas, in which case the 11-point player wins the game. That is the tiebreaker there. So, what are you going to do? You look at your cards, which represent items that the geishas have. At the beginning of your turn, you draw a card, which we find difficult to remember. I guess we're just thinking so hard about the strategy. And after you do that, and it is your turn, the active player must take one of these 4 actions indicated by these tokens. Once you take your action, you resolve it, you flip the token face down to indicate that you took the action. The other player goes and takes an action. Then you take another one, and you alternate until both players have used all their 4 actions, and that is when you check to see the situation with the favor of the geishas. The actions are simply going to play a card here, and I'm going to play it under this token face down, and it will be resolved later at the end of the round. So each player will prepare a little surprise. This token here allows me to discard 2 cards, and I place them under there as a reminder. These are the token, and these are the 2 tokens are really the main heart of the game, although it's important. I want to get out of the game cards that I don't want you to have, for example, and that's why discarding can be important. But the heart of the game is these 2 actions that both revolve around the idea of I cut the cake and you choose. This one, I will place 3 cards from my hand in front of you, my beloved opponent, my dear opponent, and you choose one and I get the remaining 2. Say my opponent chooses this card. The cards that are taken are placed next to the corresponding geisha. So, for example, I would place those cards like that because you chose that one and I received these ones. This other action, similarly, I'm gonna take cards from my hand and I'm gonna make 2 sets of 2, which I'm gonna offer to my opponent. My opponent sees these cards and says, "Oh, I'm gonna take these 2, and these 2 ones remain to me." And again, these are placed next to the corresponding geishas. So that's the idea. Once all actions have been performed, players reveal the card that they had secretly saved, and so those cards are added to the board. Suppose that those are the cards, and then we check every geisha and we see if who has the favor. If a player has more cards next to a geisha than the other player, then the token moves in their direction. So this goes here. Here there's a tie, so the token doesn't move. This player gets that one. This player gets that one. This player gets that one. And this one. This is important, the fact of the token moving, because say in this situation, it looks like no one wins the game. So we're going to play another round, and usually you play up to 3 rounds. The rules say you just play until a player meets the victory conditions, and optionally you can place the limit to 3. But in any case, I still have to see a game that lasts more than 3, that is not resolved by the end of the second or the third round. 90% of my games have been resolved by the end of the second round. Anywho, after the first round, some of these tokens will move, and they're not reset. When you play the second round, you start with the tokens there. Which means, again, that now, if there is a tie, the player who had the token retains it, because remember, you move it towards you only if you have more. So right now, basically, to get this geisha, that player will need to have majority there. Having a tie is not enough to move it, and the player will retain control or will retain the favor of that geisha. So this is the game, incredibly simple. This is how you play Hanamikoji. Play until a player controls the favor of 4 geishas or 11 points worth of geishas, and when that happens, at the end of a round, the player is the winner of the game. Hanamikoji has been around for a couple of years, has been pretty successful. I think there are good reasons. It is a remarkable exercise in minimalism. It just achieves so much with so little. Basically, you have I cut the cake and you pick and you choose in 2 variants with a couple of extra twists, and that's about it. And yet it is such an interesting puzzle. The game does have very strong the puzzle element, that riddle element, because you have almost all of the elements at your disposal. And there's an interesting twist here. Of course, early on, while you have 6 cards, there are still cards in the deck. So you have some information, but a lot of options. 4, woohoo, that's great. But of course, the more information you get, because the round is progressing, more cards are played, and more cards are drawn by you, played by you and the opponent. So you really get a sense, okay, there's only 1 card of that kind available. So the more information you have at that point, it's too late to really use it because you use 3 of your actions. And so the 4th action is mandatory. That's the only one that you have. And on this little twist here, the entire design, pretty much it all hinges on it, but it does it beautifully because you're trying to guess what may still be left there, what the opponent may still have, what the opponent may still do. And so I almost feel like I spend more time thinking about the actions that I want to save for later than the action I'm going to take next. Whatever I do is often just the result of, well, there's one action that I don't want to consume yet. I want to keep it open for later. And yes, there will be cases where all of this thinking, you make one mistake that will have some pretty massive impacts, and sometimes you do feel a little bit of tension, like you lose the entire game because you made this one wrong move, and so you lose by 1 point. And it's no big deal because the game, in which case you made that mistake in the first round, the game lasted like 5 minutes and then you play again. And therefore, this is one of those games that it's hard to play just once. And you're going to find yourself playing, like a string of games, which is great because you mean you're enjoying the game and or you really want to win a lot. And either is a perfectly legitimate way to be playing a game. So when it comes to a simple minimalistic game that you could play with somebody that is not a hardcore gamer, you can definitely play with a child, with a young gamer. I mean, my daughter Amelia is 11, but she could have played this game a lot earlier in life. I think when she was 6 or 7, she would have had no problem whatsoever playing this game. Of course, she wouldn't have been all that good, maybe, because you had to think about it all again. Because the thinking that goes into this game, again, is remarkable. It's really entertaining, gives your brain a nice little workout. So I'm really happy, I'm really impressed with Hanamikoji. I only discovered it recently, but I'm very happy that I did. I've been playing the heck out of this game with my daughter Amelia. She really likes it. The other daughter, Luisa, not super into it yet, but, one day, maybe. Hanamikoji is really impressive exercise in minimalistic design.